Okay, Mr. Chad Mendes. You got a big fight coming up. You're fighting Joshua Alvarez at Knuckle Mania, they call it, in about 10 days exactly, I think. It'll be your first fight since you came up short against Alexander Volkanovski in the UFC back in 2018. But you're back in the thick of it. You know, you've got the weight cut going on, I'm sure, the
Oh,
interviews. How's it feel to be back?
mm, it feels really good, man. I think it'll be almost a year since we started this whole process. So this is definitely the longest preparation I've had for any fight through my entire career. So I'm just at this point just super excited to get in there and actually compete. Weight's good. Fight camp went really well. Everything went as planned. No injuries, thank God. Um, I feel like I made some major improvements from close to a year ago when we started all this. So feeling good overall. Media is cool. I mean, this is stuff that it maybe hasn't been as thick as when I was in the UFC, but we've still been doing a lot of stuff with my. We launched a cookbook, and I keep forgetting to bring one, but launched a cookbook. We have a bunch of different rubs. I have a beef company, and then also fins and feathers. So we've been doing a lot of media and stuff like that to kind of spread the word with all that stuff. So, but man, I don't mind it. I love talking to you guys, and it's easy. Just get the chat and spread the word.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, man. It's great to be talking with you too. The cookbook, I watched your interview with Mike Bowen that you did a few days ago. You forgot the cookbook on that one too.
No,
What's it
dang.
called? I mean, since you don't have it, you want to tell us a bit about it, where people can
Called the
find it, what it's
provider.
called?
It's called the provider. Yeah, I don't have one in here, but um, most recipes are wild game based, but we do have a lot of beef and chicken, pork, like any of that stuff. It really can be substituted out for any of the wild game stuff. So basically, it's a cookbook. We teamed up with Ben Bella, signed a national publishing deal, which is freaking crazy. And we have it on Amazon. It's in Sportsman's Warehouse. It's all your major bookstores have them. I just never in my life thought that I'd have a published book, so it's pretty cool to see. It was a ton of work, creating all the recipes and getting all the photos and um, writing all the stories throughout the entire book. And thankfully, I teamed up with a good buddy of mine, Chad Belding. He has the Foul Life TV on the Outdoor Channel. Avid outdoorsman, loves cooking, and same as me, and just share a lot of the same passion. So, thankfully, a lot of the recipes are his. Some of our good buddies in the industry as well. So, it was fun, man. It was cool to create. It's cool to see the finished product, and it's doing really well, which is makes everything worth it. So, yeah, it was a cool process.
That sounds very cool, man. It sounds like something I would like to check out myself.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'll have to do that. Obviously, you've been very busy outside of the cage, and as you said, you've spent about a year preparing for this fight. But do you remember when it was exactly that you first started thinking, like, "Damn, I'd like to fight again"?
I mean, I never lost that, honestly. I mean, I basically stepped away from the UFC just because we had started Fins and Feathers back in 15. It was really taken off, and just my contract at the time, just to me, wasn't worth what I was putting myself through. And I just stepped away from it. We were about to have our first daughter, and there was just a lot thrown in the mix there. So I never lost that edge to compete. I still would love to have gotten there and fought, but it's like I said, it just didn't make sense. So stepped away. Started a few of these other businesses as well. Still, crushing it with Fins and Feathers and getting to travel all over the place and hunt and fish with super cool people all the time, which is like my dream come true. Just getting to share that knowledge and spread the love of the outdoors is like probably my ultimate passion. But the opportunity arose with bare knuckle, and we went back and forth for a long time, but obviously the money was right, and it made sense for me to get back in there and compete. So we ended up figuring out a deal, got it inked, and here we are today. So like I said, man, I'm just excited to get back in there. It's been a while, but I really never lost that edge to get in there and whoop some butt.
Cool, man. Well, I'd love to pick your brain a bit about this bare knuckle stuff. Of course, this sport has kind of come out of nowhere over the last few years and become quite popular. It's really kind of gained a following, gained some traction. Now, you've made it clear that they're paying you quite handsomely. That's awesome to hear. But you're not the first, former MMA fighter to come over to this sport. And on the surface, it's kind of more brutal than MMA. There's, the propensity for cuts is a lot higher. You break your hands. What is
Mhm.
it about this sport that draws so many former fighters in? Former MMA fighters, I should say.
Well, I think man, just bare knuckle boxing is such a primitive, like throwback to your roots. Just, you think of the old Irish guys just putting up their dukes and letting them rip, and it's, somebody that's either been a wrestler or a boxer or a fighter, especially coming up in the MMA world in the UFC. You get to tap back into that primal instincts. I guess for me, it's the same with hunting and fishing and living off the land, and being able to compete and get in there one on one against another human being and just prove who's the better fighter, I guess. But it's exciting as hell too. I think that's why a lot of people are wanting to tune in and see it. They're shorter rounds, so guys are just letting everything hang out. Be, blood is pretty much inevitable in these fights because your knuckles are sharp. It's not. I tell people like the padding on a UFC glove is probably only a quarter of an inch, so it's not like the concussion is much different when you're getting hit. It's just sharp knuckles will cut, just like elbows and kicks and knees. But people find that exciting. There's a little bit of blood coming
Mhm.
out of somebody's eye, and it's a push, and it's just fun to watch. So I think that's why there's so much traction with the sport right now. I know there's a lot of big companies jumping on board with bare knuckle and really taking this company to the next level. So it's pretty awesome to be a part of, kind of in the infant stages here in the beginning, and hopefully help this company grow into something spectacular. But yeah, it's going to be fun to be a part of the journey.
Fight fans talk a lot about MMA being, the purest form of competition there is. But you mentioned that, bare knuckle, there is sort of this like primitive thing to it. Do you feel like that's almost even more raw and more pure than MMA in some ways, just because you don't have the gloves? It's just straight up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the argument with boxers versus MMA guys, it's like boxing, you're only throwing hands. In a street fight, it's like anything goes. So obviously, the top level boxer versus the top level MMA guy, the MMA guy is going to win every time, and that's just the way that it goes. But I still think there's something special and something crazy to be said about two guys or girls that'll get in there bare knuckle and just box. There's no ability to go to the ground. So if you're starting to get tagged up on your feet, tough. You got to figure
Oh
it
yeah.
out. So there's no room for takedowns. You can't start keeping them away with push kicks and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's
Right,
I
right.
think it's special.
Right. People that watch this sport are starting to realize, though, there's more to it than just a slugfest. You're not just going out there and swinging. There are a lot of nuances to this sport. Of course, you want to be careful how hard you punch. There's the risk of breaking your hand and the cuts that you mentioned. The crazy thing is, though, is you can't really prepare by sparring, right? You can't do this in the gym because you're going to end up covered in cuts. So
Mhm.
how do you prepare for a bare knuckle fight, when it's your first time? Are you picking other fighters' brains? I mean, what's the process for you here?
Yeah, we've had a guy Eddie Hoke on our team that fought bare knuckle. He fought a couple fights, and so obviously picking his brain on things. But yeah, it's one of those tough things. I mean, even in the MMA world, you don't spar full bore with MMA gloves on. I mean, people get knocked out left and right. So you still have to have control when you're sparring with MMA gloves on. So really, your hardest sparring comes with 16-ounce gloves. And that's the same thing with bare knuckle. We sparred hard with 16s, headgear, that type of stuff. But we do a lot of technical work, bare knuckle or with MMA, like pretty thin pad just in case. But I think, like I said, this is going to be my first one. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think are going to feel a certain way. Could be completely different. I don't know. But, I feel confident getting in there that what we've trained, my speed, my power, my ability to kind of stay tight and compact, should do really well in the sport. We'll see, but like I said, it's my first time, so we got
Mhm.
no idea, but it's exciting
Mhm.
to get in there and test it out and try it.
Of course, you've been in, your fair share of wars and MMA. You've been around combat sports a long time. But given that this is your first time in bare knuckle boxing, are you apprehensive at all about those first few punches? Just how it's going to feel receiving them and giving them.
I've thought about it a little bit, but I'm honestly just trying to throw that out. I feel like if I sit and think about that too much, it could definitely get in the way of things. I'm just getting in there and I'm gonna I'm gonna just treat it like I have MMA gloves on. Basically, I'm gonna do
Mhm.
all the exact same stuff that I've been training. Um, my hands break, my hands break. You know, let's go. Hopefully, if I break a hand, it's because I knocked them out. So we'll see.
Good call, man. Good call. Overthinking is the silent killer.
It is.
That's the right move, I think.
It really is.
Let's talk about your opponent a little bit. I mean, I believe he comes from a boxing background. What do you know about this guy? What do you see in him that you think you can expose?
Yeah, Joshua Alvarez. I think he had 4 pro boxing fights.
Mhm.
He's fought twice in bare knuckle. First guy he fought, I don't think should have been in there. He KO'd the dude pretty quick. He's got some power in his right hand for sure. Throws, tight hooks and tight overhands on that side. But his last fight, he gassed big time. I heard comments of him saying, well, the reason why I got tired is because I ended up going to Mexico 2 weeks before the fight, which in my mind shows a lot of disrespect for the sport and no discipline. So I think this is a guy that I should get in there and break. There's no way this guy is going to outwork me. I have trained just as hard, if not harder, than any of my UFC fights for this fight, and everything is on point. So, obviously everybody has a puncher's chance. I say that in every fight. There's always that chance, but I think we have a solid game plan going in there against a guy like this. And like I said, there's no way this guy's going to outwork me. So as long as I'm smart and stick to the game plan, I don't see me losing this fight.
The BKFC rule set allows for quite a bit of clinching. Is that something that you've thought about? Like, do you plan on kind of factoring that into your game plan a little bit? Obviously, you
Oh,
want to
hell
let your
yeah.
hands go.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Ideally, that's like a perfect scenario for me, being able to, you know, pressure guys up against the ropes or the ring and get a hold of them. Like this guy's gonna break. His last fight, he broke, and that's basically what broke him. These boxers are used to. He's a stay on the outside, look pretty type guy. But pressure, he didn't know how to handle it. The guy got a hold of him. I think the dude was a grappler type guy, so you could tell he'd get a hold of him and put pressure. And that's ideally the perfect scenario for me for this. So,
Very cool.
I'd love to showcase my boxing skills as well. I mean, I feel really good in there just straight boxing, but um, you know, I love the fact that I can, no matter what, pressure him and break him in that sense. So.
Cool. I wanted to ask you a couple questions about just the larger combat sports landscape, starting with your old friend Alexander Volkanovski. Just any thoughts on what he's accomplished since you two shared the octagon together?
Yeah, man, that dude's a stud. I mean, I knew it before we fought and obviously knew it after. So he's a guy that, obviously trains very hard. He takes this very serious. He's not one of those champions that are half-assing anything. So, I think he's been the champion for a reason. I am super excited to see him get matched up with my teammate, Josh Emmett. Hopefully that happens sooner than later because I think that is a perfect matchup for Josh. Josh, like I said, hits harder than anybody in our gym, is a hard worker, has insane output, just like Volkanovski. I think is just more explosive, more powerful, and definitely stronger. So we'll see. Hopefully that fight gets lined up sooner than later, and we get to see that go down.
It sounds like he was sort of in the conversation for that title shot, and of course, ultimately went to the Korean Zombie. Do you have any thoughts on that matchup between Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie?
I'm excited to watch it. I think that's going to be a hell of a fight. I mean, I've trained with Korean Zombie, earlier in his career. He came out here and trained with us for multiple months. Incredible guy, super humble, very creative in there. A very dynamic striker, basically good anywhere. I mean, he's got great submissions too. His wrestling's decent. I think those two with high output, crazy combinations, punches, kicks, knees coming from any direction. I mean, that's going to be an exciting ass fight.
Well said. How about your old rival Jose Aldo? He's of course now down at bantamweight. He's looked very good down there. I mean, thoughts on how he's doing in this new division?
That guy's a beast. Bottom line, I mean, that's in my opinion the toughest guy that I fought through my entire UFC career. And I love seeing him make it, not only just make that weight, but compete and do really well down there. I mean, I remember him having trouble even making 45. So when I first heard he was cutting down to 35, I was a little worried, but he bounces back and he's doing really well. So, I wish him nothing but the best.
Cool. One last guy I wanted to ask you about, Conor McGregor. I assume you've heard of him. He, of course, has lost his last two fights. Kind of seems to be having some trouble outside the cage too. We don't need to talk about that, but just what are your thoughts on the current state of his career and his future in MMA?
Man, it's just crazy to think back when that guy was first coming up. I remember, people talking about him, and I didn't even know who he was. And then obviously, a couple years into it, I'm in there with him fighting for a interim title in the UFC on last second organization stuff. We'll just say that. But yeah, it's just crazy to see where he came from and where he's at now in such a short time. If you really think about it, I mean, the fact that this guy even still wants to compete and try to get in there and fight is crazy to me. I mean, as much money as that guy's made over that short amount of time, he doesn't need it for that. So that just goes to show that he truly does love getting in there and fighting. I think it's a mental game for him, and it's still cool to see whether you hate him or love him. It's still cool to see that guy step in the cage. He almost has that same presence as like a Mike Tyson back in the day, where everybody stops what they're doing that weekend. They want to get the fights and they want to go watch, whether he wins or he loses. It's that's the draw, and so that's what's so crazy to see that from I don't even know what 8 years ago, 6 years ago. I don't even know how long it's been, but when he first got into the UFC to these days. So yeah, I know he's been having a lot of trouble outside the UFC and trouble in life. So I don't think that's anything new. It's something that seems like it's kind of been going on for the last few years. So wish him nothing but the best, man. I know he's got a family, and hopefully he can get that stuff all squared away. So we'll see.
I know you have a multi-fight deal with BKFC, but do you think at all about going back to MMA at some point, or is that chapter closed for you?
I don't know, man. We'll see. I keep telling people, ultimately, if it did happen, the contract would have to be renewed. I think I have 3 fights left on the UFC contract. What I'm getting paid now, not a chance. But I don't know. I would have to talk to the UFC and see what things look like. But ultimately, I'm going to focus on this fight coming up next weekend, and we'll fight. I'll probably take a little bit of time off from training and doing anything, since it's been such a long process. Spend some family time and then get back to the businesses a little bit. But yeah, we'll just kind of see how this fight goes and take it from there.
So you've got the contract with BKFC, and as you said, there's still the leftover fights on your contract with the UFC. So you're not exactly a free agent yourself at the moment, but between BKFC and Triller and Habib's new promotion, Eagle FC, in your opinion, is this kind of like one of the best times in MMA history to be a free agent?
100%, man. I see these guys like fighting out their UFC contracts or getting close to it. I'm like, that's a prime spot to be in right now for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. Probably the most opportunity that any UFC fighters or MMA fighters have had leading up to this point. So yeah, man, it's pretty cool to see. I think the fighter pay is definitely starting to go up, which there's been a lot of talk about that over the last 6 years, 5 6 years, and hopefully these fighters start getting paid a lot more, definitely more of what they're worth. So we'll see.
I'm with you. Back to your fight, a few days away now, as we said. Prediction for this one? How do you see this one going?
Man, I think obviously I'm gonna see what this guy feels like in the first 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Fill out his speed, his timing, get that look, and then man, I really do see a knockout. If I land one heavy punch on this dude, I don't think he's making it past it. So I'm saying KO in the first.
Fair enough, man. I wouldn't want you punching me. After all this time, all this time away, the cancellations of this fight and so on and so forth, assuming that's the way it goes, how good is that moment going to feel for you?
It's going to feel unbelievable. Like I said, it's been such a long process, and I've been visualizing this win for so long that getting in there and getting that win is going to just feel amazing. Get back to the family and spend some time. So I'm looking forward to it, man.